Is art becoming a gateway to hell? In a world obsessed with fame, entertainment, and music icons, how often do we pause to ask, what is the cost of stardom? Where is the soul headed? Michael Jackson, the king of pop, dazzled the world with legendary dance moves. But could those very steps stem from a darker, more dangerous source than we ever imagined? Today, you'll hear chilling testimony from a singer who died clinically, was dragged to hell, and witnessed Michael Jackson's fate, forced to dance eternally in agony. This story isn't just a warning. It's a wake-up call for a generation lost in music, glamour, and spiritual blindness. Stay until the end, because what he saw doesn't just involve Michael Jackson. It might involve you. Before we begin, take a moment to open your heart to God's truth. Do two things to declare your readiness. Subscribe to this channel to join over 50,000 believers who are seeking the light of God's word, standing firm in faith together. Leave a comment below with your name and city, declaring your commitment to Christ before heaven, so that his blessings may flow to you wherever you are. Now, let us listen to this singer's testimony. I'll call myself Miller, a name to shield my identity, because if I revealed my true self, my management company would bury this story, silence me for daring to speak the truth about Michael Jackson's dance. This experience, a turning point that shattered my world, unfolded in 2007 when I was a rising singer, my name starting to echo the local music scene. Clubs buzzed with my performances, crowds cheered, and I felt the first sparks of a dream taking flight. From my earliest days, music was my lifeblood. As a boy, I'd sit cross-legged on the living room floor, eyes glued to grainy vast tapes of concerts, my heart racing to the beat. One figure stood above all, Michael Jackson. I memorized every step, the moonwalk sliding across my bedroom floor, the sharp tilt of his hat, the way he spun, effortless yet electric. I'd belt his high notes into a hairbrush, mimicking Billie Jean until my voice cracked, my throat sore. To me, he wasn't just the king of pop, he was a god of rhythm, the spark that lit my path to a singing career. It was November 2007, a chilly night that felt alive with possibility. I'd just finished a set at a popular nightclub, the air thick with sweat and applause. I was bone-tired, eyes heavy, the high of the performance fading into exhaustion. Climbing into my car, I gripped the wheel, the road stretching dark and endless before me. Then it happened. A curve came too fast, my hands sluggish, my mind a fog. The car swerved, tires screeching, and slammed into the highway divider. Pain exploded in my chest, sharp and blinding, then faded to nothing. My heart stopped, a dead silence swallowing the chaos. Hospital records later said I was clinically dead for over 7 minutes, my body limp, blood pooling, paramedics racing against time. But my soul didn't rest. A jolt ripped through me, a sensation like being torn from my skin. I hovered, weightless, above the wreckage, staring down at my crumpled form, seatbelt cutting into my chest, blood streaking my face. Panic seized me, my mind screaming, what's happening? Darkness closed in, not just an absence of light, but a living, breathing void, pressing against me, cold and clammy, smelling of damp earth and faint decay. I felt myself sinking, my steps, if I could call them that, dragging, as if wading through tar, deeper and deeper into a realm I couldn't name. Fear clawed at me, my soul trembling, a sense of dread blooming, vast and unshakable. Then, through the murk, a figure appeared, not in the spotlight of a stage, not surrounded by cheers, but in a grim, cavernous chamber, lit by a red, flickering glow. It was Michael Jackson. My idol, the man I'd worshipped, was here, in this place of horror. Not in glory, not commanding a crowd, but dancing, his movements frantic, pained, a grotesque parody of his brilliance. Whips, cruel and alive, dangled from the ceiling, their tips glinting, snapping down when he slowed, tearing at him. The instant my soul slipped from my body, no comforting light appeared as some claim. Instead, a thick, suffocating darkness swallowed me, pressing against my senses like a living weight, choking every breath I tried to take. I was sucked downward, a rapid, dizzying plunge, my mind reeling, unable to grasp what was happening. The deeper I fell, the louder the sounds grew, piercing screams of anguish, guttural wails of despair, and the sharp, grating screech of metal clashing, a noise so alien no human tongue could describe it. The air turned rancid, a mix of sulfur and rot, stinging my nostrils, seeping into my very being. I landed hard, but the ground wasn't solid earth. It was a blazing expanse of red-hot coals, glowing furiously, streaked with pools of dark, sticky blood that bubbled and hissed. Each step burned my feet, the heat searing through me, a pain that clawed at my core. Before me stretched a wide, endless road, packed with thousands of souls from every nation, every walk of life, trudging toward a colossal black gate wreathed in roaring flames. Their footsteps echoed like a judge's gavel, each one a final, unyielding verdict. They moved in silence, faces blank, eyes hollow, as if they knew this was their just end. I spun around, desperate to flee, my heart pounding in terror, but an invisible force gripped me, yanking me back with a strength I couldn't fight. From the shadows emerged a towering creature, its body black as coal, its eyes blazing like twin furnaces, red and relentless. Its voice boomed like thunder, shaking the ground beneath me. This one's a liar, a thief. He belongs to us, it bellowed, and the sound vibrated through my bones, filling me with dread. Two demons lunged forward, their claws cold and sharp, pinning my arms with a grip like iron. They didn't wait for me to speak, to beg, to explain. One drew a gleaming, jagged blade, its edge glinting in the firelight. With a swift, brutal swing, it hacked off my right hand, the one I'd used to sign dishonest contracts, to pocket what wasn't mine in my reckless youth. Pain exploded, a white-hot agony that tore through me, and I screamed, a raw, primal sound that echoed in the void. But they weren't done. The other demon, its face twisted in a sick grin, pried my mouth open, its claws digging into my jaw. It poured a molten, burning liquid down my throat, a fiery sludge that scorched every lie I'd ever told. My tongue blistered, my insides felt like they were melting. And the pain wasn't just physical. It burned my soul, a torment that ripped at my essence, deeper than any wound of the flesh. They dragged me across the fiery ground, the coals scorching my legs, the blood and ash sticking to my skin, the stench of my own burning flesh choking me. I was thrown into a dungeon-like cell, its walls slick with grime, dripping with a foul, oily substance that smelled of decay. Time vanished here. No clocks, no light, no sense of minutes or years. The silence was heavy, oppressive, a constant accusation of my guilt. I don't know how long I stayed, maybe moments, maybe centuries. The isolation crushed me, and I collapsed, sobbing like a lost child, tears streaming down my face. In desperation, I cried out, my voice hoarse and broken. Lord, if you still have mercy, please save me. My plea echoed, faint against the wails around me. Then, a miracle. A pure, radiant light pierced the darkness, not the red glow of hell's fire, but a clean, white beam, bright and holy, like a piece of heaven itself. It flooded my cell, pushing back the shadows, the heat, the despair. An angel appeared, his form tall and majestic, his eyes stern yet brimming with compassion. His robe shimmered, woven of light, and his presence brought a calm I couldn't comprehend. Without a word, he reached out, his hand glowing with a gentle warmth. He touched my severed wrist, and my hand regrew, flesh knitting together, whole and unscarred. He brushed my face, and the burning in my throat faded, my mouth healed. My body was restored, but the pain in my soul lingered, a deep, aching scar, a reminder of my sins. I stared, trembling, awed by his power, his mercy. The angel's voice was steady, commanding. Stand up. You haven't seen everything. What lies ahead is more horrific. I struggled to my feet, legs shaking, fear and gratitude warring within me. The air still stank of sulfur, the distant screams still rang, but his presence gave me strength. I didn't know if I could bear more, but I felt a purpose forming. God had spared me, pulled me from this pit. I had to follow to see the truth, not just for myself, but for everyone still blind to this fate, walking carelessly toward this wide, burning road. My heart pounded as I stepped behind him, the echoes of torment fading slightly, but the weight of what I'd witnessed pressing heavy on my soul. The angel led me through a cavernous expanse, the air thick with a choking blend of sulfur, burnt flesh, and a sickly sweet rot that clung to my skin. The heat was unbearable, a constant assault, as if the atmosphere itself was alive, pressing against me, trying to crush my spirit. We entered a chamber, and I froze. A man sat hunched, his fingers frantically tapping a glowing phone, his eyes wild with panic. Each time he tried to lift his head, to rest his hands, a demon leapt from the shadows, its body gnarled, claws like rusted hooks, face twisted in a grotesque snarl. It beat him mercilessly, pounding his back, his head, until he resumed, whimpering, trapped in an endless cycle. The angel's voice cut through the cries. These are those who wasted life on phones, neglecting prayer, ignoring scripture. Now that obsession chains them forever. I stared, my chest tight. The man's hands bled, his fingers blistered from the heat of the device, yet he couldn't stop. The demon's laughter was a grating, guttural sound echoing off the walls, mocking his pain. The floor beneath him glowed red, steam rising, the stench of burning skin mixing with the foul air. I thought of my own hours scrolling, lost in screens, and a cold dread settled in my gut. We moved to the next room, and my blood ran cold. Dozens of people, adults and teens, sat rigid before flickering TV screens, their eyes locked open, unblinking, faces pale and drawn. The light from the screens cast eerie shadows, illuminating their terror. If one dared shut their eyes, even for a heartbeat, demons with spiked, slimy limbs and glowing red eyes surged forward, plunging needle-sharp claws into their eyeballs. The victims screamed, a high, piercing sound, blood and tears streaming down their faces, but they couldn't stop watching. The angel turned to me, his gaze heavy. They chose screens over God's presence. The air grew denser, a suffocating fog of despair, the smell of blood and charred flesh overwhelming. I gagged, my throat burning, the heat of the floor searing through my feet, leaving them raw and stinging. The screams blended into a constant, haunting wail, a chorus of lost souls with no hope of relief. I saw a young girl, barely a teen, her face contorted in agony as a demon stabbed her eyes again and again. Her cries were raw, desperate, pleading for a mercy that never came. I wanted to reach out, to pull her away, but my feet were rooted, my body trembling. Everywhere I looked, torment reigned. The walls pulsed, as if alive, dripping with a black, tar-like ooze that stank of decay. The ground shifted, jagged rocks and coals cutting into my soles, each step a fresh wave of pain. I heard whispers, faint and frantic, souls begging for release, their voices swallowed by the endless noise. The demons moved with glee, their forms grotesque, some with horns, others with tails that whipped the air, delighting in the suffering they inflicted. Their eyes glowed, locked on their prey, relishing every flinch, every scream. I thought of my own life, the nights spent binge-watching, the days lost to mindless entertainment. Had I valued those hours over prayer, over connection with God? The weight of that question pressed on me, heavy as the air around me. The angel's presence was my only anchor, his light a faint shield against the darkness. I saw a man try to turn from his screen, his hands shaking, his face drenched in sweat. A demon seized him, slamming him back, forcing his eyes open with clawed fingers. His howl of pain echoed, a sound I'd never unhear. This wasn't just punishment, it was a mirror reflecting choices made in life, now eternal. The stench grew worse, a mix of rot, blood and burning, so thick I could taste it, a bitter, acrid tang on my tongue. The heat pulsed, waves of it rolling over me, sweat mixing with tears. I wanted to cover my ears, to shut my eyes, but the horror demanded I look, demanded I feel. The angel's voice was steady. See this, remember. I nodded, my heart racing, my soul aching. These chambers held a truth I couldn't escape. Time was precious, a gift squandered by so many here. I saw their regret, etched in every twisted face, heard it in every cry. My own choices flashed before me, moments I'd ignored the call to pray, to seek light. The demon's laughter rang, a taunting reminder of what awaited the careless. The angel guided me forward, his step sure, his light unwavering. I followed, shaken, knowing I'd carry this warning, this terror, forever in my heart. We entered a vast, dim chamber, the air thick with a sickening, humid heat that clung to my skin, heavy with the reek of burnt flesh and sulfur. The walls loomed, jagged and black, dripping with a slimy, foul liquid that hissed as it hit the glowing floor. I stopped, my breath catching, unable to believe what I saw. There was Michael Jackson, my idol, dancing in a frenzy, his movements sharp and desperate, no trace of the grace I'd adored. Above him, hundreds of leather whips hung from the ceiling, alive, writhing like serpents, tipped with barbs that gleamed in the firelight. He faltered, his legs trembling, sweat and blood dripping from his brow. The whips lashed down, a brutal flurry tearing at his skin, leaving raw, red gashes. He screamed a raw, heart-wrenching sound and staggered back into motion, forced to dance again. The angel whispered, his voice low and grave. His dance didn't come from God. It was inspired by darkness, and now he pays the price. I stared, my heart pounding, my mind reeling. The man I'd worshipped, whose steps I'd practiced for hours, was trapped in this nightmare. Demons circled him, their forms grotesque, skin charred and cracked, eyes glowing like embers, mouths twisted in cruel, mocking grins. They jeered, dance, star, entertain us. Their voices were a grating rasp, echoing off the walls, blending with his cries. The floor beneath him glowed red, steam hissing from cracks, the heat so intense I felt it burn my own feet. His clothes, once iconic, were tattered, singed, stained with blood. Each step he took left bloody footprints, the ground sizzling, the stench of burning skin choking the air. I watched, frozen, as he tried to pause, his chest heaving, hands shaking, eyes wide with exhaustion and pain. The whips struck again, faster, harder, their barbs sinking deep, ripping flesh. His scream pierced me, a sound of pure agony, and I felt tears sting my eyes. The demons laughed, a sick, guttural sound, delighting in his torment. One grabbed his arm, claws digging in, forcing him to spin, to moonwalk, to mimic the moves that once captivated millions. But here each step was torture, each turn a fresh wound. My childhood flooded back. I'd spent hours in my room, mirror propped up, copying his spins, his slides, his tilt. I'd sung Billy John until my voice gave out, dreaming of the stage of his glory. Now that glory was ash. His face, once radiant, was scarred, twisted, eyes hollow with regret. The air grew thicker, a mix of smoke, blood and decay, so heavy I gagged, my throat burning. The walls seemed to close in, pulsing, alive, as if feeding on his pain. I wanted to shout, to stop this, to free him. But I was powerless, a witness to his eternal fate. The whips cracked again, a relentless rhythm, and he danced, his body jerking, no choice left. The demons taunted, their claws raking his sides, their laughter a blade to my heart. I saw his hands, once gloved in white, now blistered, bleeding, reaching out, pleading for rest, for mercy. None came. The ground shifted, coals and jagged stone cutting deeper, steam rising in clouds, the stench overwhelming. Tears streamed down my face. I'd idolized him, built my dreams on his talent. Now I saw the cost. The angel's words burned in my mind, a warning about the source of our passions, the roots of our art. What had I chased? What inspired me? The heat pressed closer, sweat soaking me, the screams and whips a constant roar. I thought of fans, millions, still dancing to his beat, blind to this truth. My soul ached, heavy with the weight of what I saw. The angel stood beside me, his light a faint shield against the horror. Michael's cries grew hoarse, his movements weaker, but the whips didn't stop. The demon's eyes glowed brighter, their joy in his suffering a sickening sight. I smelled the rot, the burn, felt the heat radiate, a living force of torment. This was no stage, no spotlight. This was eternity, a price paid for choices I couldn't fully grasp. I turned to the angel, trembling, my voice a whisper. Why? His gaze was steady, sorrowful. See and warn. I nodded, the lesson searing into me. a truth I'd carry forever. We descended deeper, the air growing hotter, a blistering wave that scorched my skin, the screams swelling into a deafening storm of anguish. The ground quaked, blood pooling in cracks, the stench of decay and sulfur so thick I could barely breathe. A massive throne loomed ahead, towering, carved from black stone, cloaked in flames that burned an unnatural, inky black, radiating a dread that sank into my bones. Satan sat upon it, his form monstrous, skin like charred leather, eyes molten lava, a grin of triumph splitting his jagged face. He roared, "The world comes to me. They love beauty, glamour, and despite their preaching, they choose hell." His voice shook the cavern, a deep, rumbling growl, and the air pulsed with malice, heavy and alive. Around the throne, leaders gathered, presidents of America, Russia, Asia, Africa, Europe, all kneeling, their faces pale, eyes wide with fear. The angel spoke, his voice cutting through the chaos. They prepare for World War III. More deaths fill hell. I watched, stunned, as these figures, once mighty, bowed low, their hands trembling, sweat and blood dripping to the floor. The ground hissed, steam rising, the heat unbearable, burning my feet through. Satan's laughter boomed, a sound of pure evil, echoing off walls that dripped with black ooze, the stench of rot and burnt flesh choking me. The leaders' clothes were tattered, stained with ash and blood, their bodies shaking as they served him. I saw a president, one I'd seen on screens, his face now twisted, pleading, but Satan's eyes glowed, unrelenting. The flames around the throne leapt higher, casting shadows that danced like specters, mocking their fall. The air grew denser, a suffocating fog, pressing against my chest, my throat raw from the acrid smell. I felt small, helpless, my mind reeling at the scale of this. War, death, chaos, all feeding this place. The ground beneath was alive, pulsing, jagged edges, slicing my soul's blood and coals mixing in a sickening stew. Demons prowled, their forms grotesque, squares curling, tails whipping, claws glinting as they laughed, a grating, vicious sound. They jabbed the leaders, prodding with fiery spears, delighting in their whimpers, their cries. The stench grew worse, a blend of death, smoke and despair, so thick I tasted it, bitter and foul. My heart pounded, terror and awe warring within me. These were men of power, now reduced to pawns in this pit. The angel's voice was firm. No one escapes consequence. I saw a leader try to stand, his face etched with defiance, but a demon seized him, slamming him down, flames licking his skin. He screamed, a raw, broken sound, and I flinched, the pain radiating as if I felt it too. The throne's fire cast an eerie glow, illuminating faces of regret, eyes hollow with the weight of their deeds. The scale of this plan shook me. Millions would suffer, die, and end here, fueling this darkness. The air vibrated, heavy with Satan's glee, his presence a force that crushed hope. I smelled blood, felt the heat pulse, waves of it rolling over me, sweat stinging my eyes. The screams blended, a chorus of lost souls, begging, wailing, unanswered. I wanted to turn away, to run, but the angel's light held me, steady and sure. His gaze met mine, urgent. See this. Understand. My soul trembled, burdened by this vision. The leader's pleas faded, drowned by Satan's laugh, the fire's roar. The ground shifted, steaming, cutting deeper, the stench of burning flesh overwhelming. I thought of the world above, blind to this, racing toward chaos. The angel guided me forward, his presence my shield, but the weight of this truth pressed heavy, a call to warn, to wake those still walking this path. I moved on, shaken, the echoes of torment ringing in my ears. The angel led me to a new prison, a dank, fiery pit, the air thick with smoke and the reek of betrayal, a sour, rotting stench that burned my lungs. The walls were slick, black, dripping with a tar like slime that sizzled as it hit the glowing floor. I saw pastors, men of faith, chained in torment, their faces twisted in agony. One, a famous preacher, knelt before a red dragon, its scales glinting, eyes like embers, puffing white smoke onto his hands. That smoke had powered false miracles, dazzling crowds in life. The angel pointed, his voice stern. He worshipped a false Jesus. The dragon's breath was acrid, curling like lies, the air heavy with the smell of burnt flesh and deceit. The pastor's chains clanked, a mournful sound, his body shaking as flames licked his sides. His cries were raw, desperate, pleading for a mercy that didn't come. Demons hovered, their forms grotesque, skin cracked and oozing, claws sharp, taunting him with hisses and jeers. I peered beyond, seeing grand churches in capital cities, packed with worshippers, all adoring a fake god unknowingly. The scene shifted, chilling me. This false lord crowned a dead pastor's son, his new servant, in a blaze of dark light. A line of clergy followed, dozens strong, offering their souls to this power, their hands outstretched, eyes blind to the truth. The air stank, a mix of sulfur, blood and rot, so thick I gagged, my throat burning. The ground beneath pulsed, hot and jagged, cutting my feet, steam rising in clouds, the heat a constant assault. I heard their wails, a chorus of regret, too late to undo their choices. Demons laughed, a grating, vicious sound, jabbing with fiery rods, delighting in the pain. The betrayal. The walls seemed alive, closing in, dripping, the stench overwhelming. My heart sank, heavy with shock. These were men I'd trusted, voices of God now exposed as frauds. I'd sat in pews, listened to sermons, believed in their light. Now, I saw darkness. The dragon's eyes glowed, relishing their fall, its smoke coiling, a symbol of lies. I saw a pastor try to rise, his face etched with anguish, but a demon seized him, slamming him down, flames scorching his skin. He screamed, a sound that pierced me, and I flinched, feeling the weight of his sin, the souls he'd led astray. The angel's gaze was unwavering, his voice firm. Truth matters. Warn them. I nodded, trembling, my mind racing. How many followed these men, blind to this fate? The air grew denser, a fog of despair, the smell of burning flesh and decay choking me. The ground shifted, coals and blood mixing, the heat searing, sweat and tears mingling on my face. I saw their eyes, hollow, reflecting a torment eternal, a price for greed and deception. The demons' claws glinted, their laughter a blade to my heart, mocking the fallen. I thought of churches, packed and grand, singing to a lie. The weight of this crushed me, a truth I couldn't ignore. The screams echoed, a constant wail, blending with the hiss of steam, the crackle of fire. I wanted to shout, to wake the world, but my voice felt small, lost in this pit. The angel stood steady, his light a beacon, urging me on. My soul ached, burdened by this vision, the cost of false faith. I moved forward, the stench clinging, the cries ringing, a vow forming, to speak, to reveal, to save others from this end. We entered a shadowed cell, the air damp and heavy, reeking of stagnant water, rot, and a sickly, fishy odor that stung my nose. The walls were slick, coated in a slimy film, dripping with a foul liquid that pooled on the floor, hissing as it met the glowing coals. I recognized Pastor Moses, still alive on earth, yet here, chained, his head bowed low. The angel spoke, his voice clear and grave. He wed a water goddess, took a ring of control from a Benin mermaid. That ring, gleaming with a dark, unnatural light, he wore to sway crowds, bending their will to his. Beneath his church, buried charms pulsed, dark power fueling his voice, his miracles. The air was thick, a mix of sulfur, blood and wet decay, so dense I struggled to breathe, my throat raw. His chains clanked, a mournful rhythm, his body trembling as flames flickered around him, ready to claim him. The ground squelched, wet with blood and slime, steaming, the heat burning my feet, each step a jolt of pain. The angel's voice cut through. If he doesn't repent, this cell awaits. I stared, my chest tight, seeing his eyes wide with fear, reflecting a fate he could still escape. I knew his sermons, his booming voice, the crowds he moved to cheers and tears, all built on a lie, a pact with darkness. Demons prowled, their forms slimy, scales glinting, eyes glowing like lanterns in the murk. They hissed, claws ready, waiting for his fall, their laughter a low, wet rasp, echoing off the walls. The stench grew worse, a blend of rot, water, and burning, choking me, a bitter taste on my tongue. I pictured his church, grand and packed, the ring on his finger, a secret power. How many followed, blind to this truth? The ground shifted, jagged and hot, cutting deep, steam rising in thick clouds, the air alive with despair. His chains rattled, his head low, a man teetering on the edge of this pit. I wanted to cry out, to warn him, to shake him awake. The screams of others rang, a distant wail, blending with the drip of slime, the crackle of fire. My heart raced, terror and urgency mixing. The angel's presence steadied me, his light a faint shield, cutting through the damp gloom. I saw Moses' hands, trembling, the rings glow a mark of his sin. The air pressed closer, heavy, suffocating, the stench of decay and water overwhelming. I felt his fear, a weight I carried too, a call to action. The demon's eyes locked on him, eager, their claws glinting, ready to drag him down. I thought of his flock, trusting, lost, and my soul ached, burdened by this vision. This was real, a warning for him, for all. The ground burned, the air stung, the cries echoed, a constant reminder of what awaited. I wanted to run, to escape, but the angel's gaze held me. He has time. Tell them. I nodded, my resolve hardening, the stench and heat clinging, the truth searing into me. I moved on, shaken, a mission forming to speak, to save before this cell claimed another. We stepped into another chamber, the air hot and thick, heavy with the reek of burnt flesh, sulfur, and a sour, metallic tang of blood. The walls loomed, black and jagged, dripping with a sticky, foul ooze that sizzled on the glowing floor. I saw Sister Mary, a gospel singer famed for her faith, her voice once a beacon of light. 3 years before her death, she fell to lust, laundered money, and lay with a producer, led to witchcraft by another singer. The angel said, she started well but ended in darkness. She stood in flames, her once pure voice now a wail, raw and broken, echoing through the pit. Demons circled, their bodies grotesque, skin blistered and cracked, claws glinting, jabbing her with fiery rods. Her skin blistered, burned, then healed, only to burn again, an endless cycle of pain. The stench was sickening. A mix of char, blood and decay, so thick I gagged, my throat burning, my eyes stinging with tears. Her eyes pleaded, hollow with regret, her hands reaching, finding no relief. I remembered her songs, how they'd lifted me, filled churches with hope. I'd sung along, moved by her passion, believing her a vessel of God. Now her legacy was ash, consumed by fire. The ground pulsed, hot and sharp, cutting my feet, steam rising, the heat a relentless assault. Demons laughed, a grating, cruel sound, mocking her cries, their eyes glowing, relishing her torment. She tried to turn, to escape, but a rod struck, forcing her back, her scream piercing my heart. The air grew denser, a fog of despair, the smell of burning flesh and rot choking me. I saw her fall, the choices that led here, lustful nights, dirty money, dark rituals. The walls seemed alive, pulsing, dripping, the stench overwhelming, a bitter taste on my tongue. I wanted to reach out, to save her, but I stood frozen, a witness to her fate. Her wails blended with the distant screams, a chorus of lost souls, unanswered, eternal. My chest ached, heavy with her loss, my mind reeling. I thought of her fans, the crowds she'd swayed, now at risk, blind to this end. The ground shifted, coals and blood mixing, the heat searing, sweat and tears mingling. The demon's claws raked her, their laughter a blade, cutting deep. I saw her try to sing a faint, broken note, but flames swallowed it, burning her throat. The angel's words rang true, beginnings don't guarantee endings. My soul trembled, burdened by this truth, this fall from grace. The heat pressed closer, the air thick, suffocating, the stench clinging to me. I wanted to cover my ears, to shut my eyes, but the horror held me. The angel stood steady, his light a faint hope, his gaze firm. Choices matter, warn them. I nodded, shaken, tears falling, the cries and smells lingering. This was a lesson, a call to see beyond talent, to guard the heart. I moved on, the weight of her fate, the mission to speak, burning deep in my soul. We entered a vast hall, labeled political order, the air scorching, heavy with the reek of blood, sulfur, and burnt flesh, a stench so thick it coated my throat. The walls towered, black and cracked, dripping with a foul, red liquid that steamed on the glowing floor. Every president of my nation stood here, condemned for spilling innocent blood. The angel declared, "No one rules by blood and enters heaven." I saw President Mewtwo, self-proclaimed eternal king, bound by a pact with the Zir River god. He'd urinated in the national river, offering its water to Satan's realm, renaming Congo to Zaire for the goddess. Flames licked his feet, his screams roar, his body shaking as fire consumed him. The ground hissed, red and jagged, cutting deep, blood pooling, the heat unbearable. Former Prime Minister Lumumba and a South African president burned too, judged for bloodshed despite freedom fights. Demons prowled, their forms grotesque, horns curling, claws glinting, laughing a vicious, grating sound, jabbing with fiery spears. The stench grew worse, a mix of death, smoke and rot, so dense I gagged, my eyes watering. The ground shifted, coals and blood blending, steam rising in clouds, scorching my soles. Mewtwo's face was twisted, eyes wide with regret, his hands clawing the air, seeking escape. The flames leapt higher, searing his skin, his cries a desperate plea, unanswered. I saw Lumumba, once a hero, now writhing fire eating at him, his legacy stained by blood. The demons taunted, their voices echoing, delighting in the torment. My heart pounded, terror and awe mixing. These were leaders, giants of power, now fallen broken. The air pulsed, heavy with despair, the heat a living force, sweat soaking me. The angel's warning rang, power stained by blood led here. I thought of wars, lives lost, chaos they'd sown. The ground burned sharp and hot, the stench of burning flesh choking me, a bitter taste lingering. I saw a leader try to stand, defiance in his eyes, but a demon slammed him down, flames roaring, his scream piercing. The hall was a mirror, reflecting sin unshielded by title. The walls pulsed, alive, dripping, the air thick, suffocating. I felt their pain, a weight radiating, crushing my spirit. The demons' eyes glowed, their claws raking, their laughter a blade to my heart. I wanted to turn away, to run, but the truth held me. The angel's voice was firm. "See this, speak." I nodded, my soul trembling, burdened by justice, by lives lost to greed and power. The screams blended, a constant wail, echoing with the hiss of steam, the crackle of fire. I thought of the world, blind to this end, chasing power. The heat pressed closer, the stench clinging, my feet raw, my chest tight. The angel's light guided me, a faint shield, his gaze urgent. This was real, a warning for all. I moved on, shaken, the cries and smells lingering, a mission to warn burning in my heart. The angel led me to a jagged corner, the air thick with smoke, the reek of burnt flesh, sulfur and a sour, metallic blood scent choking me. The ground glowed, hot and sharp, steam hissing, cutting my feet with every step. I saw Papa Wemba, a great Congolese artist, his form hunched, flames licking his sides. He looked at me, eyes hollow, voice trembling. I and Kofi were in a secret order. "Tell Kofi his time runs short. If he doesn't repent, he'll join me here." His words shook me, his face twisted in pain, hands clawing the air, seeking relief. Flames burned his skin, blistering, healing, then burning again, the stench sickening, a mix of char and decay. Demons circled, their bodies grotesque, skin cracked, eyes glowing, laughing a low, vicious rasp, jabbing him with fiery rods. The ground shifted, blood pooling, coals searing, the heat a relentless wave, sweat and tears mingling on my face. His plea was urgent, a warning for the living, his voice cracking, raw with regret. I shivered, the reality sinking in. Heaven and hell were true. The air grew denser, a fog of despair, the stench overwhelming, burning my throat. Papa Wemba's hands trembled, his body writhing, flames clinging, his cries a desperate echo. The walls loomed, black and slick, dripping with a foul ooze that sizzled, the sound blending with distant wails. Demons taunted, their claws glinting, their glee a sickening sight, relishing his torment. I felt his regret, a weight pressing on me, a call to action. I thought of his music, his fame, the fans who adored him. Were they at risk, following his path? The ground burned, sharp and hot, steam rising, the stench of blood and fire choking me. His eyes met mine, pleading a message for Kofi for all. I wanted to reach out to ease his pain, but I stood frozen. The angel nodded, silent, his light steady, guiding me away. The air stung, the cries rang, a constant reminder of time running out. My heart raced, terror and purpose mixing. I saw his legacy, once bright, now ash in this pit. The demons' laughter echoed, a blade to my soul, their eyes locked on him, eager for more. The ground pulsed, cutting deep, the heat searing, the stench clinging. I knew I'd carry his words, a mission to save others, to wake the blind. The angel's presence held me, his gaze firm. I moved on, shaken, the truth searing, a vow to speak burning in my soul. The angel lifted me from hell's depths, the screams fading, the heat easing as we rose. Heaven opened, a realm of stunning beauty, a stark contrast to the pit below. Crystal rivers flowed, sparkling under a golden light, pure and alive, their gentle rush a soothing song. Fields of vibrant flowers stretched endless, reds, blues and golds swaying, their scent sweet, a fragrance of peace and life filling me. The air was clean, light, a cool breeze brushing my skin, washing away the stench of hell. Towers of pearl and gold gleamed, their surfaces catching light, reflecting a brilliance that dazzled my eyes. The sky glowed a soft, radiant hue, no sun needed, for the light came from within, holy and warm. I heard voices, a heavenly choir, not just singing, but praising, a sound so pure it lifted my soul. Every blade of grass, every leaf seemed alive, vibrant, pulsing with a joy I'd never known. I felt weightless, free, the pain of hell a distant echo, replaced by a peace that soaked into my being. I stood before God, his presence overwhelming, a force of love and power. Light poured from him, not blinding but warm, holy, wrapping me in comfort. His face shone, radiant beyond form, yet I felt his gaze, eyes deep with wisdom, seeing every corner of my heart, my sins, my hopes. His robe flowed, woven of light, shimmering, alive. His voice rolled like thunder, yet was gentle, a sound that shook me and soothed me. Miller, go back, warn them. Live for me. Tears fell, not from fear but awe. I fell to my knees, trembling, his love a weight I couldn't bear, yet couldn't live without. The air vibrated, filled with his glory, the scent of flowers and light all around. Angels moved, their forms bright, wings glowing, their praise a constant hum, lifting my spirit. I saw souls, clothed in white, faces radiant, walking streets of gold, their joy eternal. The beauty was beyond words, a promise of what awaited the faithful. My heart swelled, a purpose forming. I'd seen hell, now heaven, a contrast of doom and hope. The ground beneath was smooth, cool, a relief to my scarred feet. The light touched me, healing, strengthening, a gift I didn't deserve. God's voice echoed, a charge to speak, to save. I felt his mercy, a love so vast it broke me, rebuilt me. The air sang, the choir's harmony a call to return, to share this truth. I awoke in the hospital, my body shaking, throat ravaged, unable to sing. Machines beeped, doctors hovered, but the vision burned clear. My voice was gone, a scar from hell's fire, but I chose a new path. I became a vocal coach for my company, teaching, still earning a living. Every Sunday I confess at church, bearing my soul, seeking forgiveness. Nightly I kneel with my Bible, its words a light, a comfort, drawing me near to God. The memory of hell lingers, the screams, the stench, but heaven's hope drives me. I pray, study, live for him, finding peace in his presence. My life is changed, a mission to warn, to guide others from that pit. I see students, young singers, and I share not my name but this truth, urging them to seek God, to choose light. My heart rests, consoled, close to him, a purpose burning bright. Miller's story leaves us shaken. He was a singer, chasing dreams, yet God showed him a stark truth. This isn't just about Michael Jackson. It forces us to ask, are we on the right path? Does our heart belong to God, or God of fame and idols? God used Miller to wake us, not to condemn but to save. If you're breathing, you have time to turn back. Share this story, reflect and seek Jesus. Stay tuned for another chilling testimony of Michael Jackson in hell, a vision to stir your soul. Millions around the world once fell in love with the music of Michael Jackson, the king of pop, a timeless icon whose dance moves and songs stirred hearts across the planet. But his death remains shrouded in mystery. Could it be that behind all the dazzling lights and global fame lies a horrifying truth we've never dared to face? If you've ever wondered, the answer may be found in today's letter. This story is the testimony of a woman who encountered a sacred moment between life and death. Her soul was taken on an unimaginable near-death journey, one that brought her face to face with Michael Jackson in the depths of hell. What could have led such a legendary figure to such torment? What secrets are waiting to be revealed? Stay with us to the very end as we uncover a story that may cause you to rethink your own choices. Before we begin, we invite you to leave your name and the city you're watching from. We would love to pray for you, speak your name before the Lord, and stand with you in faith. If this story touches your spirit, we welcome you to join the sacred work God is doing through this channel, Eternal Bible Stories. By clicking the Super Thanks button below this video, the heart icon, you're offering a financial gift to help us continue spreading light and truth to thousands more. We are deeply grateful and believe God will honor your generosity. He will return it to you many times over. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it today so you can help us share God's love and light around the world. Now, listen closely to his testimony. My name is Aisha Thompson, 52 years old, a music producer living in Los Angeles. I grew up in Detroit, in a neighborhood where the church was the heart of the community. Since I was a child, I sang in the church choir, and the music of Michael Jackson was the light that guided me through the hard days. He wasn't just a singer. He was the dream of Black America, a symbol that showed we could shine in this world. Songs like Man in the Mirror and Heal the World weren't just music, they were calls for change, hope for a little girl like me. I turned my love for music into a career. I produced R&B and gospel hits, worked with big stars, many of whom were inspired by Michael. But success came at a price. I slowly drifted away from the faith of my childhood, caught up in fame, money, and the power of the music industry. I believed music could change the world, that it was my religion. I'm the mother of a 16-year-old daughter named Jada, who also has a passion for music, but is being pulled into the idol culture of modern celebrities. I feared Jada would repeat my mistakes, but I didn't know how to guide her when I myself was lost. I always dreamed of meeting Michael Jackson, just to thank him for inspiring me, but I never imagined that dream would come true in the most terrifying way. That fateful day began like any other. I woke up, made coffee, checked emails from artists, and prepared for a recording session. I wore my favorite red dress. The color, Jada said, made me look radiant like a diva. The sky was unusually beautiful that day, and I had a strange feeling that I should pray, but I brushed it off, busy with work. That afternoon, while in the studio, I suddenly felt dizzy. A stabbing pain pierced through my chest like a knife. I collapsed to the floor, still gripping my headphones. Everything went dark. I could hear nothing but a silence that pulled me out of my body. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in the familiar world. The space around me was filled with a supernatural stillness, as if time itself had ceased. The air was pure and soothing beyond words, as if even the atmosphere was breathing with me. The ground beneath my feet was transparent and reflective, like polished gold, but it wasn't metal. It was alive, as if each molecule held light and life. Before I could comprehend what was happening, I sensed an overwhelming presence behind me, not through sound, but deep within my soul. It was an energy that was both gentle and all-encompassing, holy yet not oppressive. As I turned around, a radiant light exploded in all directions like a sunrise bursting forth across the universe, and from the center of that light he stepped forward. I had thought I knew him through the Bible, through images, through sermons, but nothing I had ever heard or read could prepare me to face him in truth. He wasn't just present, he filled the entire space. He was the light, yet this light did not blind. It penetrated every fiber of my being. His body radiated a glory unlike any earthly light. This was the light of life, of truth, of a love without blemish. His robe was pure white, but not white as we know it. It seemed to be woven from the purest rays of heaven, shimmering, brilliant, and constantly in motion as if it were alive. There was no wind, yet his robe floated as though it resonated with the heartbeat of eternity. His hair was long, soft as silk, glowing with a heavenly silver hue, each strand like a stroke of gentle lightning in the night. His eyes were what left me breathless. They were both flames and oceans. Within them was the justice of the ages and yet boundless mercy. His gaze didn't merely look at me. He looked through me. Every secret, every wound, every hidden sin laid bare yet not condemned. He did not despise me. He looked at me like a father finding his long-lost child, like a king who sees priceless worth in a soul thought to be beyond saving. He called my name, Aisha. His voice echoed like the roar of countless rivers converging into the sea, both majestic and sweet, and it resonated in my heart more deeply than any sound in my ears. "I have brought you here," he said, "so that you may see what you must speak to the world. Many are living in blindness, not realizing the eternal consequences of their choices." Jesus gently extended his hand. His hand, the same that had been pierced for me, now reached out with infinite tenderness. I placed my hand in his. A wave of warmth rushed through me, as if every fear, every wound, and every doubt melted away. The light around me grew more radiant, so intense it felt as though every shadow in the universe had been swept away. Each step I took with Jesus brought me closer to something beyond words, and then I stood before the gate of heaven. Nothing in the material world could compare to what I was seeing. This gate was not only grand in size, it was a living symbol of power, holiness, and absolute glory. The shining patterns looked as if they were carved from light itself, every detail sacred, as though etched by the very breath of God. The entire space trembled with a holiness that made my soul shake. Before the gate stretched an endless line of people, each one waiting their turn to be judged. On their faces was a strange mix of hope and fear, as if their hearts trembled knowing that nothing could be hidden anymore. No defense lawyers, no excuses, no second chances. 3 angels stood guard at the gate, towering, powerful, and incredibly beautiful, but so solemn that a single look from them made everyone too afraid to step out of line. But what stunned me most was the presence of a strange angel. An angel full of eyes. Hundreds, even thousands of eyes covered the being's body. Each one wide open, alive, seeming to see into every hidden corner of the soul. It wasn't a human-like gaze of judgment, but a gaze of absolute truth, without bias, without emotion, unmoved by any word. One by one, each person stepped before the angel. No questions, no dialogue. The story of their life automatically appeared. Every thought, every action, every hidden motive in the heart. When a person was deemed worthy, the angel would nod, solemnly, slowly, and the gate would open. Light from within poured out like a river of life, and from afar I heard the angelic chorus, not music but the rejoicing of all heaven, welcoming a soul home. But when someone was rejected, not a single word was spoken. The angel only shook its head, and instantly a violent whirlwind appeared and consumed that person. Screams echoed, heartbreaking cries, Then all vanished into a bottomless abyss. I stood frozen, witnessing a terrifying truth. No one can lie in this place. No secret escapes the eyes of eternity. No action is invisible before the throne of judgment. I noticed that so many were rejected, only a few were accepted, so few they could be counted on one hand. One by one they vanished into the whirlwind, and my heart grew heavy. Then something happened that left me speechless. Only one woman in that entire line was allowed to enter heaven. She wore simple clothes, unremarkable, with no impressive appearance. But a peace radiated from within her as she stepped through. The angels erupted in thunderous praise, their voices ringing like thousands of waves crashing upon the shores of eternity. Jesus turned to me, his eyes both tender and solemn. This is the woman I accept. She always prayed, always forgave, always lived in humility, love, and holiness. She was not famous, but she was faithful. This is the kind of life I require. Jesus turned to me. His eyes no longer held the gentle warmth they had before, but now bore a profound severity. He asked, his voice like thunder echoing through my soul, "Aisha, what have you done with the gifts I gave you?" I was startled. A shiver ran down my spine. I stammered, "Lord, I used it to make music. Music helps people feel emotion. I wanted to inspire." He remained silent. But it was not the silence of lacking words. It was the silence of overwhelming disappointment, too deep to express. After a pause, he said, "Far too many use my gifts to glorify themselves. They paint their own fame, feed worldly desires, and unintentionally or deliberately lead an entire generation away from me." I was speechless. Every word from him cut through the layers of self-justification and pride I had once clung to. The songs I once thought were beautiful, the artists I had promoted, the messages I had championed, they all replayed like a film in reverse. I began to see they were not merely songs. They were seeds planted into the minds of listeners, and many of them, I now realized, did not lead people to life, but instead pulled them away from divine truth. Jesus looked deeply into me, as if he wanted me to feel the full depth of the consequences. Only a few worship me in spirit and in truth. The majority sing from the flesh, offering praise to their egos and to idols of their own making. Do you know where that path leads? I could not answer. My chest tightened. A trembling rose from deep within, as if my soul was being shaken at its core. Suddenly, the light around us vanished. Everything changed in an instant. No more radiant sky or gentle air. Instead, there was a dense, suffocating darkness, thick as if it could be touched. A heavy, burning heat engulfed everything. It was not the heat of the sun, but a consuming fire coming from within the very atmosphere, as though every molecule was groaning under the weight of being scorched. And then I heard it. The screams. Not just one, but thousands. Tens of thousands. Screams and cries that tore through the void like a desperate symphony of forgotten souls. I panicked, turning to Jesus, my voice trembling, "Lord, what is happening? Where are we going?" He answered, firm yet full of authority, "We are going to hell. You must see it, Aisha. You must fully understand the consequences so you can warn others." I was horrified. My entire soul trembled. "Please, Lord, no. I don't want to go. I'm so scared." But he did not waver. His voice remained calm, yet unshakable. "You must go, because millions are entering that place every day, and they don't know." So we began to descend, and I felt myself being pulled into a vortex of darkness and crushing pressure. Layers of space folded in on themselves as I was dragged deeper and deeper into a bottomless abyss. The air grew thick and suffocating, the stench of sulfur overwhelming, mingled with the acrid smell of burning flesh. not of animals, but the spiritual decay of human souls consumed by despair. "Lord," I whispered, trembling, "what is this place?" Jesus' voice was calm and filled with sorrow. "This is hell, Aisha, a place of torment prepared for the devil and his angels. But many souls have chosen to come here through disobedience and by rejecting me." I clung tightly to his presence, knowing that without him I would be completely lost in this terrifying place. The wails and groans of the cursed souls echoed throughout the space, like a symphony of agony, reverberating through every fiber, every vessel in my being. This place wasn't simply dark, it was a living entity, wrapping around and constricting everything, as if it wanted to suffocate the soul itself. The screams never stopped, as if the suffering here knew no end, with not a single moment of silence or rest. In the dense blackness, I saw human figures, no longer human in form, being torn apart, burned, then restored, only to be tortured again in an eternal loop. Each face was grotesquely twisted in unbearable pain. Every eye reflected total despair, as if they had long since run out of tears, yet were still condemned to cry for all eternity. I walked among them, but every step was a struggle. The ground beneath me was not solid earth. It was the breath of writhing souls, hot as burning coal, clinging to each of my toes, so heavy it made me want to collapse. I could feel the pain of those around me, as if it was flowing through my skin into my bones and filling every breath I took. No one here held even the faintest spark in their eyes, only delayed regret and the undeniable truth that they would be here forever. Suddenly, one man caught my attention. He was unlike the others. He was still screaming questions, still trying to cling to something. His face, though disfigured by agony, clearly showed remorse, with no way out. He clawed at his face as fire engulfed him, and the words he shouted pierced directly into my heart. Why didn't I repent? I thought I had more time. "Lord," I asked, voice broken, "why are they here?" Jesus replied, "These are those who rejected my invitation of salvation. They chose their own path instead of my truth, and now they must face the consequences of that choice." At that moment, I understood the true horror of hell. It wasn't just the physical pain or terrifying scenes. It was the complete and utter absence of hope. This was a place where despair reigned supreme, and the awareness of that fact was the most terrifying thing of all. We continued descending deeper into hell, a place where every step sank into darkness, where screams blended into wails so completely that you could no longer tell one soul from another. Every twisted face, every writhing spirit was a warning bell, yet nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to witness. In the distance I saw a figure moving. Unlike the other souls who only moaned or screamed, this one was dancing. But it wasn't dancing from joy. It was a distorted, contorted movement, as if every joint was being stretched and twisted by some cruel force. As I got closer, I was stunned. It was Michael Jackson. I didn't recognize him by his face. It was disfigured by pain, scars, and fire. I recognized him by the white glove, the scorched hair, and the dance steps that had once captivated the world. But now, every movement was torture. Demons circled him, howling, swinging fiery whips, forcing him to keep dancing. They shouted mockingly, "Entertain us! Sing! Dance! Isn't this what you wanted?" Michael Jackson was surrounded by flames that seemed to lash at him, inflicting visible pain. He was crying, pleading for mercy and forgiveness. He appeared to be under constant torment, physically and emotionally. Amid his cries, I heard Michael confess his sins. He repeated that he had led people astray with his music and his influence. He spoke of how his songs affected his fans, how they had imitated his lifestyle and choices, many of which he now realized were harmful. He seemed desperate for a chance to make things right. Michael's confession was heartbreaking. He spoke of how he had come to see that his music and image deceived people, leading them away from the right path. He acknowledged the power he once held and the responsibility he had failed to carry. His pleas for a second chance were filled with sincere regret. Hell was a place of unimaginable pain and suffering. The air was thick with the stench of burning flesh and sulfur, making it hard to breathe. Everywhere I looked, there were souls being tormented, their bodies writhing in agony. The flames never ceased, licking at their skin and delivering unending, horrifying pain. The ground was scorching and razor-sharp, slicing into my feet with every step. There were creatures that seemed to take delight in adding to the suffering of the condemned. The sounds were unbearable. The relentless screams of those in agony echoed without pause. It was a place where every sense was assaulted, where each moment was drenched in horror. The sight of tortured souls and the sound of their anguish combined to form a landscape of pure torment. Amid this sea of pain, Michael Jackson stood out. His torment was especially intense. He was constantly moving, trying to escape the flames that surrounded him, but there was no relief. He reached out, grasping at the air as if trying to hold on to something that might save him. His desperation was gut-wrenching. He kept screaming that he was sorry, that he never meant to lead people astray. Despite his pleas and visible remorse, there was no escape from the torment. His efforts to make amends were met with silence. The flames continued their relentless assault. He was trapped in an endless cycle of pain and regret. Seeing Michael in this state made the horror of hell feel terrifyingly real to me. I collapsed. In that moment, I saw clearly the image of an entire generation. People who had grown up singing his songs, mimicking every dance move, every style he wore. I had once thought of him as a genius, a symbol of talent and freedom. But now, before my eyes, was the terrible consequence of misplaced worship. Michael was no longer an artist. He was a living testimony to the tragic failure of choosing fame over God. Jesus looked at me and said, "Warn them, Aisha. Many still idolize him, but his influence has led them away from me." As we walked away, Michael's cries grew fainter, but the image of his suffering was forever etched into my memory. After witnessing Michael Jackson in torment, I felt as if my heart had been crushed. The dance moves, the melodies that once captivated the world were now just echoes of regret in hell. I wanted to run, to forget what I had just seen, but Jesus held my hand. His eyes were both gentle and stern. "Aisha," he said, "you haven't seen it all. You must understand your responsibility." We stepped into a new area of hell, where the darkness felt alive, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. The air was thick with the stench of sulfur and despair. Every breath felt like a blade slicing through my chest. Then, before me, appeared a scene I will never forget. A massive crowd, thousands of souls gathered as if in an eternal concert. But there was no joy, only agony. They screamed the names of the artists they once idolized. Names echoed through the flames: Michael, Whitney, Prince, and even the songs I had once produced. But now the lyrics were distorted, turned into curses, each sound a dagger slicing through their souls. Demons with twisted faces and thorn-covered arms stood among the crowd, holding microphones and flaming headphones, forcing the souls to sing. One young woman, her face contorted in agony, screamed, "I lived for music. I thought it would save me." She tried to sing one of the hit songs I had produced, a catchy anthem about love and freedom, but every word she uttered seemed to summon flames that licked her skin, sending her into screams of despair. I recognized her. She was a fan who had once visited my studio, who told me my music had changed her life. But now, here she was, tormented by the very melodies she once loved. I turned away, unable to bear it, but Jesus held me in place. "Look, Aisha," he said, his voice like thunder. "This is the consequence of what you created." I trembled, tears streaming down my face. "Lord, I only wanted to bring joy, I didn't know." But my words caught in my throat as another soul approached, a middle-aged man with bloodshot eyes. He grasped at the air, like trying to cling to something he had lost. "You're the one who produced that song," he screamed, pointing at me. "I listened to it every day. I lived by it, and now I'm here. Why didn't you tell me about God?" His words pierced my heart like a blade. I recalled the recording sessions, where I chose catchy melodies and lyrics that glorified materialism, lust, and boundless freedom. I thought I was creating art, but I had unknowingly led my listeners away from the truth. Those songs were not just sounds, they were messages, paths that led them here, to a place with no hope. Jesus looked at me, his eyes full of sorrow but without condemnation. "Aisha, I gave you talent to glorify me, to lead others into the light. But you used it to serve fame and the world. You've seen Michael Jackson, seen his fans. Now you see yourself among them." I collapsed to my knees on the scorching ground, feeling the heat searing my flesh. "Lord, I was wrong," I wept. "I didn't know my music had such power. Please forgive me. If you give me another chance, I will use my gift to lead people to you." The space trembled with the screams of the crowd. I saw souls reaching upward, as if trying to escape the flames, but the demons dragged them down, laughing loudly. A young girl, no older than my daughter Jada, cried out, "I idolized them. I lived for them, but they're not here to save me." Her words rang like a warning bell. I thought of Jada, of how she sang along to modern songs, of how I had failed to teach her to put God above all. If I didn't change, would Jada end up on the path to this place? Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder. His touch brought a measure of peace amidst the horror. "Aisha," he said, "you have seen the truth. Now you must choose. Will you continue to lead others here, or will you use your voice to save them?" I nodded, tears streaming down my face. "I will tell them, Lord. I will use my music to glorify you, to warn them. Please give me a chance." As we left that place, the distorted singing of the crowd still echoed behind me, but within my heart, another fire had been lit, the fire of awakening and mission. I knew that if I returned, I would never make music the same way again. I would create melodies that led listeners to God, not to hell. As heaven's light enveloped me, the horrors of hell slowly faded, yet the memories remain etched into my soul. Michael Jackson's cries, the torment of his fans, the downfall of the Pope, all of it burned deeply within me. I felt Jesus lifting me gently, and suddenly I was back. On the studio floor, cold and trembling, clutching my headphones. I awoke in tears, shaken. My daughter Jada knelt beside me, sobbing. "Mom, are you okay?" I wrapped my arms around her, overwhelmed by her warmth, a reminder of God's mercy. In that moment, I knew this was my second chance, not to return to the life I had known, but to become a new creation, commissioned to warn others. From that day forward, I was no longer the Aisha Thompson I once was. My near-death experience had transformed me. I couldn't listen to my old hits without cringing. The melodies that once made me proud now evoked images of souls in torment, people misled by the messages I helped create. I realized that music wasn't just art. It was a spiritual force that could lift people to truth or drag them into darkness. So I changed everything. I refused to produce songs that glorified materialism, lust, or pride. Instead, I devoted myself to gospel and faith-based music. I launched a new project, Light of Truth, where I mentored young artists, not only in technique but in the spiritual responsibility of their influence. I shared my testimony of Michael, the fans, the Pope, so they would understand that fame is never worth the price of a soul. At home, I became a different mother. I had once let Jada idolize pop stars without caution, but now we prayed together, read scripture, and I taught her to honor God above all. I encouraged her to write music, but reminded her gently, sing to glorify Jesus, not for the praise of men. She joined the church choir, and I saw a new light rise in her eyes, the light of faith. Even my approach to church changed. What was once routine became sacred. I sought out churches that worshipped in spirit and truth, just as Jesus said. I joined a prayer community, boldly sharing my story to awaken and encourage others. Each time I told it, I trembled, but I knew it was the mission Jesus had entrusted to me, to rouse sleeping souls from deception. The music industry didn't welcome my change. Former colleagues called me extreme, some shut their doors on me. But I no longer cared. I had seen hell. I knew the price of living for human applause. Now every song I write is a prayer. Every lyric is a call to return to Jesus. I no longer dream of meeting Michael Jackson or any celebrity. My only dream is to see Jada, these young artists, and a lost world walk through heaven's gates, where no pain remains, only eternal light. Aisha's testimony is a wake-up call. She was a music producer who once believed in the power of art, but God used her to expose the terrifying truth about eternity. This story doesn't just make us think about Michael Jackson, it forces each of us to ask, am I placing idols above the Lord? Does my heart truly belong to Him? If this story touched you, please hit like, share it with those you love, and subscribe to the Eternal Bible Stories channel. Leave your name and where you're from in the comments so our prayer team can intercede for you. And if you thought Aisha's story was shocking, our next letter will leave you trembling with the vision God revealed to another soul.